Hey, it's been a couple of days. Been a hectic time. First of all, I'm dependent on others now. My phone's not working and I can't do a Facebook Live with it or any videos. Therefore, I need to grab someone else's phone in the house to be able to start. Not that there aren't a lot of phones in the house, but you know how people are possessive over their phones. And I wanted to share with you a thought, but this is a little bit of a deep mystical thought on this week's portion. I think it has powerful message and lessons for us in the times we live and the challenges we struggle with as we prepare for the high holiday season in this uncertain time. You know, all the mitzvahs in the Torah, almost all, there's 613 commandments in the Torah. All of them, at least most of them, are dependent on our consciousness, on our intending to do it. Keeping Shabbos, wrapping tefillin, eating matzah, refraining from evil gossip. It all is about us understanding and thinking, I want to eat matzah. I want to do this mitzvah. There's only one mitzvah that not only don't you need consciousness and awareness to do it, but awareness is a negative. And you can only fulfill it if you're unaware, if you're forgetful, if you're not paying attention. You ask, what does that mean? Which mitzvah is it? I'll tell you. So we all know the Torah puts a tremendous effort on social justice for the poor and for the needy in a remarkable way. And a lot of it is in this week's Torah portion. The Torah, for example, tells us that when you plow your field, you always have to leave a corner for where the poor people will come and get what they need. When you're doing your bundles and you drop a few, leave them there, don't pick them up. A certain percentage of our grain, of our wheat, of our fruits go to the poor people, to those that need it. But then there's one mitzvah that's fascinating, that's in this week's Torah portion. And the Torah says like this: if you are gathering the bundles in your field, you've finished harvesting, you've finished sowing, planting, and now you finally got everything together, you have your bundles, you wrap them together, and they're ready to be taken home. You grab them, you throw them into your truck, and you go back to, and then you realize you forgot 2 bundles. You forgot them, it was a mistake. So you want to go back and get your bundles. Tells you the Torah, oh no, now you can't go back. That has to be for the poor person. But it's interesting, because it's the only mitzvah that not only is it not important to have the proper intention, but it could only work if you're forgetful, if you don't remember. For example, if some guy plans a trick and he says, you know what, I'm going to make believe I forgot it and then give it to the poor person, it doesn't work. Because if really you thought of it, it's not a mitzvah. Of course, you can give as much charity as you want, but the mitzvah is only when you forget. In fact, ironically, the name of the mitzvah is called shikha, which means forgetfulness, forgetting. What's even more puzzling is the story brought in the tractate of Talmud in Tosefta Peah, which speaks about a person who was collecting his bundles in the field and he forgot some, and he got the opportunity because he forgot it to leave it there for a poor person to get it. And he told his son, come, I'm making a feast. I want to bring a sacrifice in the temple to celebrate the fact that I forgot this. So his son looked at him and says, I don't understand, Dad. What's so special? What's so special? Because you forgot? Is that the mitzvah? Wow, so you want to celebrate in such a way? So the father says, you don't understand. All the mitzvahs of the Torah are done with intention. If I eat matzah in my sleep, I don't get the mitzvah. This is the only mitzvah that is only our forgetfulness. But the answer is really not an answer. What's the big deal of the mitzvah that because it's forgetfulness that wanted a celebration? And why does God give us a mitzvah called shikha, which means to forget, and can only happen when you're absent-minded and forgetful? You know the story about the couple, they were getting older and they weren't remembering much. And they were having issues. It was causing friction. They were forgetting things. And one day they go to the doctor and they say, listen, what should we do? The doctor said, listen, I have an idea. You're getting older. You're in your 80s. Why don't you, every time you want to do something, write it down on a note. And then you'll remember. Take the note with you and it'll help you remember. They said, fine. So that day they come home. They're sitting in the dining room, in the living room watching the news. And the wife turns to him and says, honey, could you get me ice cream in the kitchen? He says, sure. And he says, don't forget to put strawberries on it. He said, no problem. He He goes there, she screams, wait, why didn't you write it down? You remember what the doctor told us? Please, I want ice cream and strawberries, and write it down. And he says, nah, don't worry. I think I can't remember to get you ice cream and strawberries. 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes passed, 15 minutes passed. And the guy comes back and he brings her eggs and cheese. And she takes the plate, she looks at it, then after a minute she looks at him. She said, I told you to write it down, you forgot the toast. So what's the specialty of forgetfulness? I want to tell you something that's brought down a lengthy discussion in a discourse by Reb Shneir Zalman of Liadi, the founder of the Chabad movement. It's extraordinary, profound insight, and I hope that the deep mystical terminology I could put into us layman words that we could possibly understand and relate to it. Look, life is such. There are many goals and opportunities in our life that we can and must access from preparing for them, by wanting them, working for them. You have to have, if you're not going to have a plan, if you're not going to have a goal, if you're not going to have a dream, you're never going to become the doctor. You're never going to become the money market person or the teacher you want. These are things that need hard work and a plan and a vision in order for you to succeed. But then there are opportunities that you can never access through your consciousness, by your aspirations and dreams. Why? Because your aspirations and your dreams are subjective to your mind, to your limitations, to your finite being of who you are at that moment and what you're thinking. Your dreams and aspirations could only be as great as your mind, as your conscience, as who you are at that moment. It's finite. But then there are those things, those dreams that come to us only when we're not in our conscious self. In fact, the only way we prepare for them is by losing our consciousness. Had you planned for them, they could never have happened. Only because you did not plan for them. Only because your ego and limited scope of life did not interfere, did it allow you to accomplish this thing. Or to maybe employ the super psycho-spiritual Chabad way of looking at things. Even those things that happen when you're absent-minded are also being navigated by you. The only difference is it's not being navigated by the conscious self, but by the superconscious self. It's something beyond you. I'll give you an example. You know, there's a great quote, a great line that says that there's two people that fail. The ones who don't have a plan and the ones who stick to their plan. It's a very powerful thought. You know, of course, if you're a teacher and you don't have a plan, you're failing your students. If you want to build a house and you don't have a plan, it's going to be a disaster. If you're a rabbi and you get up to the pulpit without preparing, you're doing unjust to the people in your community. Of course there is. You must have a plan in life. You must have a conscious intention to the things you want to do and accomplish in order to succeed. But if you stick to the plan, even when it veers off of you, and you're not ready to take those moments that come, even when you run away from it, those things that land on your doorstep, and the opportunities that come to your way by subconscious when you didn't expect them, and which you think that are not for you, and you keep on pushing away, yet it turns up again and again. If you don't pick up the wheat kernel and see the blessing within that opportunity and move and veer away from your script, there is no chance for you to truly succeed. Because in those moments of subconscious, of unintentional things that happen that you think are by chance, is really God's way of sending you a blessing that is beyond the scope of your potential as a human and is an infinite blessing. I know it sounds deep, it sounds mystical, it sounds spiritual, but it's true in our day-to-day life. I once asked a super famous pianist, I said, what's the best time and success you ever had? And he said, it's when I lose myself in what I'm doing. I said, what do you mean? He says, when I don't feel myself in the music I'm playing, when it's all about, when I get transcendent into the crowd and into a subconsciousness where it's not about me, that's when I'm most successful. Ask the greatest speaker, teacher, lecturer, when he has the most success is when suddenly he transcends his own conscience, his own being, his own limitations, his own materialism, his own physical. And is able to reach and grasp the subconscious which Hashem gives him. And that's why there's a special mitzvah of shikha, of forgetfulness. After you reap and you harvest and you plow and you sow and you put together and you do all the sweat and all the planning and all the consciousness to do something, there's the opportunities that come through your forgetfulness, through your subconsciousness. Why do I say this? I thought about this a lot. It's been such a frustrating summer for me as we begin to plan for the high holidays. Usually we're planning for hundreds of people and children, an opportunity to inspire. And then suddenly God changes this subconscious, this forgetfulness. We have to be outdoors in an open tent, and we have to do short services, or maybe just shofar by tashlich, or maybe just something we're going to send to people before the holiday that they could do it in their own home so they could be safe. And you say, what's going on here? But the truth is that in the mitzvah of shikha, in the mitzvah of forgetfulness, of the things that come to our doorstep without us planning, could be found the greatest opportunity to capitalize on the inner strength, on the divine, infinite godliness we have within us. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a struggle. But we're going to find the wheat kernels and the mitzvahs and the blessing within it. It won't be perfect, but it's going to lead to a better self for us, to a better community, to a more united community. I just ask you, as I dial off here, to always remember that when there's a forgetful moment, we all forget our keys, we all forget things in our life, your passport, something. It's not the greatest thing usually. But when there's a moment where through your forgetfulness, something comes to you that's not in your conscience, that wasn't planned, don't throw it away, don't rip it up. Take it and harness it to the blessing that Hashem should give you. Have a great day.